Thank you for joining me for the sixth episode of the Doc Talk with Liz podcast. Our guest this week is Debebe Theodros. Debebe is currently an MD-PhD student at Johns Hopkins Medical School and is interested in immunology and neurosurgery. I hope you enjoy. Hi, Debebe. Thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be on.
Awesome. So can you kind of just start off by telling us about your journey into medicine and what led you to pursue an MD and PhD?
Yeah, so in some ways, my journey is kind of straightforward. In some ways, it's not. And what I mean by that is, in terms of my interests, they were pretty straightforward, but what I ultimately ended up doing was not. So, I've grown up and I had really enjoyed and liked science. And by grown up, I mean like when I was younger, right, 10 or so, I started thinking about science and how cool it was and how I wanted to help people. And I had a few different experiences in life where I was starting to form realize the things that were important to me. And one of those experiences was, working in a wood and metal shop where we were building things with our hands. And so I thought about engineering as well. And I thought this is also a really nice way to apply myself. And so a cousin of mine who was a role model, and she was at Duke. She's a few years older than me. She's at Duke for undergrad and come to visit me. We were talking about our experiences, and she's talking to me about how she'd shadowed a neurosurgeon in the operating room. And at the time, I was also interested in mind-brain duality and the nervous system in general. So she was describing these sort of things. This was maybe in high school. When I was in high school, I realized this is a great marriage of things I'm interested in. The nervous system and the ability to work with my hands to build things or fix things, so to speak. So it was at that point, I realized, okay, I want to be a neurosurgeon one day. And so, eventually I went to college at the University of Florida. And I had this mindset that I was going to be a clinician, but I was slowly being exposed to research. So I had a friend my freshman year who talked to me about his research experiences, and I thought that's something that I'd like to learn more about. And it was tough in the sense that I think I emailed something like 25 different faculty members, and like 23 or so didn't even respond to me as a freshman. And I think one of them said they just don't have space. And then another one said the same thing. And at that point, I was, I don't know, frustrated. I wasn't angry, but I was a little disheartened. But I decided, you know what, I'll just ask this individual, after thanking them for getting back to me, do you know someone who may have space? And so they did, and I joined a lab studying the mechanisms of cough and swallow in a cat model, and I spent 4 years in the same lab, and I realized I really enjoyed research. So then I had done, this is at the University of Florida again. And so big school, a lot of different interests, but sometimes you don't meet paths with people who are pursuing a career that you may want to pursue. What I mean by that is between my sophomore and junior year, I did a summer program at Columbia in New York. And I met someone who was in the MD PhD program there. Really nice guy, really helpful, was really letting me know about his experiences. And at the time, we followed up an email, and at the time he'd said, there's a line in the email that I'll always remember because it kind of swayed me one way or the other. And it said, generally speaking, a lot of the MD PhDs try and pursue an 80-20 split in terms of time. So 80% of the time is in lab and 20% is clinical. And at the time I was like, I think I actually want the opposite. I think I want 80% clinical and 20% research. So I said, thanks for the information. And, I applied to med school, and the rest was sort of history. Until I got to med school, and I was going through the coursework, and it was January of my first year, and we started our immunology block. And I had no idea what the immune system was. I mean, really, I couldn't even tell you what it did before I got to med school. So I was a biochem major.
Okay.
And I fell in love with it. I thought it was so fascinating. I thought this idea of using the immune system as a way to target cancer is really cool. And so, I spent, I did 3 years of med school, and I took a year off. So I took a year off to work in a cancer immunology lab. And I realized, perspectives change over time, you'll see. And so, I joke because before I'd said 80-20, with regards to the 80-20 split, I want 80% clinical and 20% research. Now I had realized, I think I want the opposite. I think I love this. I found my passion.
Okay.
And I think 80% of my time in lab would be great, and maybe 20% in the clinic or the OR or whatever, some sort of representation of my time in that fashion is what I wanted. But I also realized I wanted to stay in academia, and that a year is really helpful. I learned a lot. I had a lot of great experiences, but for the things that I wanted to pursue, getting formal training in the sense of a PhD would really benefit me. So I transitioned to the MDPhD program, and here I am now wrapping up my PhD.
Okay, so you don't have to apply straight into an MD-PhD program. You can transition after you're in medical school?
Yeah, so I didn't even know really about MD-PhD programs or applying beforehand. So I had to learn a lot of this myself. So I definitely reached out. I reached out to, my advisor at the time, who was also an MD-PhD, was super supportive. The program director here, Andrea Cox, who's amazing and very supportive as well. So I just, kind of gathered the information. And I think I'm fortunate in that Hopkins is an institution that has some flexibility for the students. So I don't know if this is, I'm sure this is not the common path, but it is a path, at least here. So I don't know if I should generalize, but yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And so you said that you were really interested in immunology. So and I know that your PhD thesis defense is in like a few months or like maybe 2 months or something like that. So what do you currently research? Like what is your kind of research focused on within immunology?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So there's a lot in immunology, and I think we're learning more and more just how important it is in every sort of disease facet, if you will. So the research I'm interested in is with regards to how does the immune system and cancer, what is that interface like? And how can we disrupt that interface now that we know that the immune system is really important for either promoting cancer or sort of preventing or inhibiting cancer. So my research is involved in kind of discovering new targets that we may be able to one day bring to the clinic that really target a subset of immune cells called myeloid cells in particular. So my thesis work is revolved around a gene and the role this it codes for a protein that's expressed on myeloid cells, but this protein hasn't been described before. So we're kind of doing all the groundwork now. And seeing what's its role in cancer, but also in terms of basic biology as well.
Okay. And like, do you have any tips for people that maybe want to go into immunology? They're listening to you talk about this and they're like, wow, this is so cool. So any tips for people that want to go into it, like research they should do or volunteering or different things like that?
Yeah, I mean, like if you know what the immune system is, then you are already steps ahead of me. So maybe I should be asking what tips you have for me. But I think you'll see. I think the best thing you can do for yourself is just continue to explore the world around you and aggressively, especially as for us young people, to really understand what are the things we're passionate about, because you want to find the thing that I was listening to a podcast. You want to be irrationally passionate about something. You got to go find it, because then it just, the highs and the lows, overall, it's just a joy to be in that sort of space. So with immunology, if you already know you're interested in immunology, I mean, you can, I encourage people to like reach out to individuals, reach out to faculty, reach out to students. And I sort of practice what I preach. I mean, I've reached out, cold emailed faculty who I've really respected. And, sometimes people are too busy, can't, respond. Sometimes you're surprised and they get right back to you. And all of a sudden you're having a conversation with them, So if it's something you're really interested in, reach out to people you may be interested in. You can find a lot of information about, what labs generally do on their websites. And then try and get involved. I mean, I know it's really tough now. It's unfortunate with regards to the pandemic. It's unfortunate for a lot of reasons, this being one of them, that it's hard to get into labs. in general. Even as a grad student for us, we were kind of shut down for a little while, and now we've got regulations and restrictions in terms of how many people can be in the lab. But all you can do is try your best and be proactive. And there's a lot in immunology. So if you find yourself a little confused or not sure of what you exactly want to do, then you're just like the rest of us. And just keep talking with people, and you'll see your interest kind of solidify over time.
All right. And so you kind of told us a little bit about what you research within immunology. Now, could you possibly give us just a general concept in immunology, like something really cool, something that would just blow our minds, and just kind of explain it to us?
Yeah. So the immune system is the system that, generally speaking, deals with pathogens and protects us from all sorts of pathogens and the environment in general. And that's the sort of like classical immunology that people are thinking about. And now, one of the things that I've become really interested in is how does the immune system just maintain basic function like homeostasis, which is really cool and interesting to me because it doesn't necessarily relate to pathogens, but just, what is the immune system doing in your heart that maintains heart function? Or the one that I'm interested in is the brain. So historically speaking, people thought the central nervous system was this sort of immune privileged organ or organ system. And what we're finding is that's not the case. In fact, we were spectacularly wrong in the sense that, we have these resident immune cells in the brain that are maintaining neuronal synapses, connections between neurons. And that we have immune cells in the lining of the brain that are secreting, these soluble proteins and influencing how we think, which is like just fascinating to me. So that's maybe a little tidbit that I'd put out there. This field of like neuroimmunology is rapidly expanding, and there's a lot of interesting things going on.
Yeah, definitely. And then, you talked a little bit about applying to MD-PhD programs. Can you kind of give us like a glimpse into the life of an MD-PhD student? I know that, obviously every single day is different than the other, different than the past. And then like the future is never the same as it was yesterday, but maybe there are certain things that like kind of stay constant or, in the day-to-day.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty similar with regards to, so the way it generally works is oftentimes you'll do, your first 2 years of medical school, which are like preclinical. So they're, in the classroom, more didactic learning. And then you'll go off and do your PhD for, however long it takes. And then you'll come back for your last 2 years, which are the clinical rotations. And I think it's like a sort of natural split. The first 2 years are just the same as if you were a med student. You're going to classes, you have your small group lessons, you may have labs or what have you. It just depends on the school. You may go to clinic, etc. You'll learn how to conduct a physical exam. It's pretty similar between med students, MDs and MD PhDs, because you're all in it together. And then, you break off for your PhD. And I think that's where a lot of the variability is. So it depends on, what program you decide to do. I obviously joined the immunology program, or if you're in neuroscience or something, whatever program, because they'll have different restrictions, or not restrictions, but coursework and requirements rather. So so the first year you'll have, your courses, then you'll take your oral examination, or there's some sort of examination to ensure that, you're ready to, move on and devote your full time to your thesis work. And then after that, it's working on your thesis. So, if you're doing wet lab sort of stuff, then you're in the lab all the time, or, a day for me depends on sort of if I'm doing an experiment or if I'm analyzing data or reading or catching up. So, it can vary, and that's something that's really nice, is you have a lot of control. That depends on, your relationship with your mentors, the principal investigator, the PI, the lab dynamic, et cetera. And, we can talk about that too. For me, I've got faculty members who are the appropriate level of hands-off. So they give me some space to explore, to tinker around, and whatnot, which means I can, develop my own schedule. So, I can go in at, whatever time. I like to get up a little bit early, and then I can go, spend as much time as I want in the lab. or I can throttle back. Maybe, the day before I had a long 12-hour day or something like that. And the next day, I'll take it a little bit easy and, show up a little bit later, or spend some time analyzing data, which, I can do in the lab, at home, what have you. So it really varies. There is certainly days, weeks, sometimes feel like months that are very long, and we're working really hard. But this is why it's important to really pursue something that you're really passionate about, is because, that's why I'm in the lab. No one is really truly, wrangling my arm and forcing me to stay in the lab. It's because I'm dying to know. I'm dying to see what happens when I do this experiment, and I'm just very curious about what's going to happen next. And these results tell me I got to do X, Y, and Z. So let's just go for it, because it's all so exciting and novel and really, I think, cool. So the day can changes. These past few days, I unfortunately haven't been able to go to lab as much because I'm focusing on writing my thesis and just the other stuff at the end, getting all the requirements checked off, and transitioning back to med school. But yeah.
For people that might not know, can you explain what a thesis is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So thesis is your body of work. I think master students or doctoral students will write up a thesis, which encompasses, in a very regimented way, depending on the school, what you did, in your master's work or your PhD work. That includes, all your data, all your findings. For me, it's broken up into chapters, which each represent sort of the papers that we were able to either publish or are planning to publish in the future. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a long document. I am not the kind of guy who likes to sit and write this sort of stuff. I think I'm learning I like to write, just not about things I've already done.
Right.
Per se.
That's understandable. I think like there might be a lot of people that are like that. I am not the biggest writer. I prefer to just like do the stuff, and then I have the information in my head and I'm like, do I really need to transfer it to paper? But I guess that's important so that you can communicate it with everybody else, so that other people can find out about your discoveries.
So you're way ahead of me. Yeah, exactly. So we have to, right? So we get funding from the government or some foundation or something, and it's really nice, right? It's really nice to get the money to be able to do the experiments. And I see the data. I love talking about data. I like looking at data, but then I don't want to fill out reports or whatever. But you have to do this sort of stuff so you can show people, like, hey, thank you for your willingness to contribute to our sort of mission, our passion. Here is what we've been able to do. And it's important because, it's a way of developing your ability to communicate, particularly about science, but also about ideas. And it forces you to realize, what do I actually understand really well? I understand it well because I can talk about it very easily. Versus the things that, when I start to talk about, I realize, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of benefit to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of want to go back to where you were talking about a lab dynamic and finding a lab dynamic that works for you. Do you have any suggestions for people to be able to kind of explore that before they go into graduate school, so that they can kind of figure out what would actually work for them?
Yeah, so the lab dynamics can be very different depending on the individual labs. So if you're going to grad school, I would talk with students in the programs that you're considering. I would ask them, what is the general vibe? Like for me, the question I always asked individuals was, excuse me, do you think your institution is collegial? So do people want to help each other? Are people friendly, et cetera, et cetera? Because that's very important to me. And as grad students, I tell grad students, I think the most important thing you should look at, then, you'll get to grad school and then you'll do rotations. So you'll spend, a few months in a lab, sort of trying it out, seeing what you think about the lab, the science and the personnel, but they'll also be, looking at you and saying, does this person fit, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, it's very easy to look for a lab that's got the craziest, sexiest sort of project.
Right.
But I would prioritize looking at a lab, and that's important. You want a project that you're really passionate about, but also finding a place that you want to show up to every day, because inevitably you'll run into some really rough days, bad days where things are not working and frustrating, and that's just the science. And you want to be in an environment that's supportive, where people recognize this, are able to lift you and support you as well. So that's really important. So ask grad students, ask the people, basically ask people who are close, who are at a position close to where you will be. So for me as a grad student, I'm going to ask grad students. I can ask the PI, but they're a few steps removed. So they're not in the day-to-day in the lab, so to speak. Some are, but most aren't. So that's what I do.
All right, gotcha. And so, like we've been talking about, like being in an MD-PhD program, and like I would think that there would for sure be some stressful times, or like sometimes where you're just like, I just kind of want to break, or like it's really busy and you have other interests. So how do you find ways to put your interest into, like, besides the work that you do, being able to also pursue those things that aren't necessarily a career?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is stressful. I will acknowledge that I'm very fortunate in that I'm very proud of the work that we did as a team effort, and what's sort of coming out of the lab. I have very supportive mentors, but at the same time, there have been times where I was so frustrated and not in a great mental spot that I thought maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should just quit. Maybe I should go back to med school. So I say that because I want to share these sort of experiences, that if you ever have these experiences, you're not alone, and you can always reach out, and I'm happy to talk about it as well. And this is why it's important to be in a good space, so to speak, and have supportive mentors, because this happens on occasion. With regards to your question, sorry, I just went on a tangent, somewhat of a tangent there. Your question was initially about.
Yeah, how do you like kind of maintain your interest outside
Yeah,
of like, yeah.
yeah. So that's so important, right? So those interests, like the hobbies and whatnot, are kind of what helped me continue on. So I can leave what's happening in the lab and go pursue things that I'm interested in, and that's the flexibility of grad school, which is really nice. Is if I leave the lab a little early, then maybe I'll come in early in the morning, or maybe I'll go back to lab afterwards, and we'll make time and whatever. But that's the key, is learning to budget your time such that you can pursue these other things that are very, very important. I think I can say from experience, when I was younger, I was much more career driven, and everything was about career. And I mean, admittedly, I still am, but I also am realizing with a little bit of age and maturity where to start drawing the line in the sand, that I will never be all caught up with everything that I want to do. So that's okay to an extent, so long as you don't become lazy. So you have to be honest with yourself, but you also have to take time to take care of yourself, whether it be, whatever your hobbies are, whether it be, in art, or, working out, or spending time with friends and family, or food, whatever it is. You cannot let go of that sort of stuff, because life is too short. And we're multifaceted individuals. Some people really enjoy lab and the clinic, and that's all they want to do. And I enjoy it a lot as well. But to your point, at least the point that you're alluding to, there are other things I also enjoy as well, and it's important to maintain those because they're part of your identity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you do have some really interesting hobbies and interests outside of that. So could you kind of talk about some of your hobbies in particular?
Yeah, so the simple ones are like I love hanging out with friends, and yeah, I really enjoy hanging out with my friends here. I made some great lifelong friends in the program, and in Baltimore. I enjoy reading a lot. That's another passion of mine. But I also enjoy sort of physical exercise. I enjoy, and the reason I enjoy it is because it always teaches me something about myself. It's if anything about maintaining vitality the older I get. I should say I'm not that old either. I keep acting mentioning that, but no, I don't think I'm old. So in any case, thanks. So I used to do a lot of things. So in college I was a boxer, and I did it because I'd always wanted to know, if who am I as an individual? Could I stand in a ring across from someone else, and how would I react? And
Wow.
what was I made of, so to speak. So that was something that was really important to me. So it was a great experience.
Yeah.
And I did it for 3 years in
No,
college. And then,
no brain damage or anything.
well, who knows? Who knows? Yeah, yeah. I mean, we always wore, headgear
Right.
and whatnot and protected ourselves. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably go back and do it again, to be honest
Okay.
with you. I can't necessarily like tell people. I acknowledge the risks and
Yeah.
whatnot, but it's also, I think, was important enough for me to explore and take that risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then also, you mentioned earlier about potential different career paths and whatnot.
Mhm.
I have this clear sense of I've told spun this narrative that I had a clear sense of who I am and was by the time I was like in high school or whatnot. But that doesn't mean I wasn't also thinking really actively about other options, particularly the military. As well, because I thought it was another way of serving and service. And so I used to do these endurance events, military endurance events early in med school that I really enjoyed. And then more recently, I've gotten into weightlifting and Olympic weightlifting through CrossFit. So I've really enjoyed it. I enjoy the technical aspect and the sort of, obviously the physical demand, but also the mental demand as well.
Right. Yeah, definitely. In the first part of this interview, Debebe mentions that it's important to be irrationally passionate about the work you do and to explore the world around you to learn. He also mentions that there are immune cells in the lining of the brain that secrete soluble proteins that influence how we think. Some MD-PhD programs allow you to join after you enter medical school if you are unsure of getting both an MD and PhD. A thesis is your body of work. It encompasses what you did for your PhD work and includes data you collected and experiments you performed. To find a lab dynamic that works for you, it is a good idea to talk to current students who are in a position close to where you are. And Debebe enjoys hanging out with friends, reading, and exercise. He was even a boxer in college. So, how many days a week would you say that you are able to kind of engage in those other activities, and like how long for each day, like to be able to work around your current schedule?
Oh, I mean, so with the physical exercise, that sort of stuff is limited for me, really on in terms of how do I feel? Do I feel too tired or sore to go? Because if I didn't, I mean, I think I could go 7 days a week. So that's what's nice. I mean, grad school is very flexible in that sense. I can obviously read every day. I can spend time with friends every day, as long as they're not sick of me, that sort of thing. But and then I'll spend like at the gym. I might spend 2 hours at the gym, training or what have you. So I want to make sure people realize that there is more responsibility, right, as you go through from high school to undergrad to med school or grad school or whatever. That certainly there's more responsibility, and maybe you get less and less time, but that should never go all the way down to zero, and that you should maybe some weeks are a little bit busier than others, but you should always be able to maintain these sort of hobbies and find some time or carve some time out.
Right. And you go to Hopkins Medical School, and that's in Baltimore, Maryland. So, can you kind of tell us a little bit about like the city of Baltimore? Like, what do you like about it? Like, maybe things you don't like so much about it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I was born in Los Angeles. Then we moved to Orlando, and then to Colorado, and then back to Orlando. So I say that because I got a lot of different experiences growing up. Out in the West and California and Colorado, and then Orlando and a little bit of time in New York, and then here. And Baltimore is unlike any other city that I've lived in a good way, which has been fun and exciting. I didn't know anything about Baltimore. I'd never visited until I got here. I guess aside from interview. And it's got an amazing food scene. But the thing that, among other things, but the thing that really I enjoy the most is this sort of blue collar feel, that people are very friendly, that this is a very authentic city. It's very genuine. And I really do appreciate that. And I've met a lot of really nice people in the city as well. It's got beautiful scenes. down by the harbor, which is like a 10-minute walk from where I live, which is really nice. So yeah, I think if anything, if there's anything that I don't really enjoy as much, maybe I could do with a little bit bigger of a city, if anything. But I'm content here in Baltimore. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had more family here because I have none. But yeah,
Right.
that's not on Baltimore.
Right. Right. Is that like I think that sounds kind of like a common thing, when people go to medical school or even college, they end up having to go to an area where they don't necessarily have a lot of family or relatives living there. And so how was that adjustment for you, having to move in, like you're in 8-year or maybe even more program? How was that kind of?
Yeah, so I think we have different perspectives when we're at different stages in our life. And so what I mean by that is, when I went in, I went straight through undergrad. So I was 22 years old when I showed up to med school.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was about, oh, I have this awesome opportunity to go to Johns Hopkins. So let's do it. Even though I don't know, none of my friends who were graduating were in Baltimore. I mean, some of them moved to DC and New York, so it was very easy to go see them on weekends or whatever. But I was willing to just like throw myself out there. No family here as well. And remember, I thought that I would be doing this for 4 years and then move on. So 4 years wasn't, for me, is not a terribly long amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can, fast forward, 9 years, here I am. And now I think about it. So now I'm getting ready to apply to residency this upcoming cycle. And I think about I think about where I'd want to be, or the programs that I really love to train at. But I also think about where are my friends, where are my family, where's that support system? Because it's going to be tough, and I want to be able to if I need to lean on people or spend time with people. So that's definitely influencing sort of the decisions I'm making and how I'm thinking about these things. So for me, the other thing that was interesting when I came to med school was, I don't think, not necessarily everyone goes to med school where they're away from friends and family. I think some people, even at that stage, choose to stay near friends and family. I totally understand that. One thing that was very interesting to me was I remember meeting with some of my classmates, and they would say things like, everyone's really happy to be here, but they would say things like, oh, and I can't wait to get back to Seattle or LA or New York or wherever they were from, So I realized people had this sense of home that I don't think I necessarily had, because I was always moving around when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I thought, when I was younger, I was like, oh, this puts me at an advantage because I'll go anywhere, But now I think about it and I'm like, gosh, I just wish I had a place where I was like, I got to get back there, because it would simplify things, then I could try and devote all my resources and energy to getting back to that, place or what have you. So things change. And yeah, so I guess I'm mentioning this theme of change over time with regards to perspective, and it doesn't frighten me. It's just part of growing and realizing the things that are important to you, but also that the things that are important to you change over time, and you should listen to it. You should be aware of it. I'm trying to be as well. And it's just about personal growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of on that note, where do you kind of have like a certain plan in your mind for after you graduate from like get your PhD and then also get your MD? Do you kind of have a plan in mind of what you would like to do with that, or where you would like to go following medical school?
Yeah. So next would be to apply into residency in neurosurgery. I'll apply into neurosurgery residency. We'll see where I end up next year in March, and then go through the training. And my long-term vision is that I'll be able to stay in academia, which means stay at a teaching hospital or a hospital that's affiliated with a university,
Right.
and pursue a career studying the role of the immune system in brain cancer. So that's sort of the like long-term vision or dream, really.
That's really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, like the role of the immune system and brain cancer, like what you know so far, different research that you've done on that, like kind of biology perspective on that?
Yeah, sure. It's very different from the role of the immune system in other tissues and other organ systems in terms of the type of immune cells that are entering, that may be playing a role. Some of the biggest therapies that have hit the market for immunotherapy or in the class of immunotherapy drugs aren't doing anything for folks with brain tumors. So clearly we have to identify new targets or identify new ways of thinking that may lead to new breakthroughs. So it's certainly an exciting time because there's a lot of unmet need, and there are opportunities to really make an impactful difference for this patient population. So I'm super excited. We'll do our best.
And do you know why it is that, like, what prevents certain immune cells from being able to kind of attack those tumors that are in the brain?
Yeah, I mean, so there are a lot of different factors that go into this with regards to basically your question is, I think, what's inhibiting the
Right.
immune response to
Yeah.
cancer? Yeah, it's a great question. So there are different cells that emerge that kind of inhibit the cells that sort of target cancer. There are different soluble factors, so just like proteins that are secreted that influence the sort of phenotype or the quality of the immune cells, such that they promote tumors instead of prevent tumors. And then there are like physical aspects, with regards to blood vessel formation. Can you even get inside the tumor, or are you being diverted away? Are there factors with regards to just barriers that prevent the immune cells from getting there? So there are a ton of issues that we have to address. But again, it speaks to a lot of potential for breakthrough, which I'm hopeful for.
Yes, definitely. Me too, of course. Um, and so, like, you kind of told us about your path into medicine and what you're currently researching, some future plans. Now, do you have any tips or like specific pieces of advice or encouragement for people that maybe want to go on a similar path that you are on right now?
Oh yeah, sure. So I mean, I'm really excited and enthusiastic for people who want to pursue it. I can say that certainly there have been a lot of highs and certainly some lows, but the highs really outweigh the lows, making everything worthwhile. Tips I would have are to really just work hard in general as you're working on your application and whatnot, or your goals. Pursue things that you're passionate about, because it really does come through when people talk with you or interview you or take a look at your fantastic body of work. It comes through what were the things that you're authentic about and really passionate about, and we need all those people. Whatever your passions are, we need them, and I want to hope to help each and every person flourish in that aspect. And then seek out individuals, seek out guides and mentors, people who can help you out, people who can give you insight into roadblocks that you may not predict. You may have a sense of what are the things I need to sort of do to get me in a good position, but there are things that you may not realize that people do just because of experience. So I kind of like when people sort of shoot me an email just out of the blue, people I've never even met. It's really nice because it shows that they're really interested, and I can try and impart some hopefully helpful knowledge. I'm not sure if it's always helpful, but it is what it is. So, if you ever feel discouraged or having a tough time, just make sure you ask yourself, is this really what I want to do? And if it is something that you're really passionate about, remember that all of us feel these experiences, that we continue to feel them. I mean, I've gotten rejected from grants so many times, had troubles with papers being accepted. It doesn't end, but the highs are really high, and it makes it all worth it in the end. And especially to form relationships with patients. I mean, some of the coolest experiences I had on my clinical rotations were talking with people, and they would just reveal things about their lives and become very vulnerable with you in a very safe space, which was just fascinating to me. So, to be able to do that every day is just a blessing. And
Yeah.
it's a real privilege.
Absolutely. That's actually like one of the reasons that I'm really inspired to get an MD and a PhD too, is because it's like amazing that you can meet these people that are actually affected by this disease and by like the biology behind it, and then you can go into lab and think to yourself, if I were to be able to create a really good treatment for this, think about all the people that I know that it could be able to positively affect, and even the people that you don't know too, and how that can translate to such like a huge positive impact on the world around you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you really can change the way that medicine is practiced. It certainly takes a lot of hard work. Admittedly, there's a lot of luck involved as well, and just continue to be kind and grateful and supportive of each other. And I think the universe will respond appropriately.
Yeah, definitely. And then going back to you talking about Baltimore a little bit, you mentioned that there's a really great food scene. So of course, I am very into like trying different foods and stuff. Like I consider myself to definitely be like a foodie. I think that's what they term it. But like what? I just like a fun question. Like what kind of foods do you like the most and like exploring down in Baltimore or just anywhere else?
Yeah. So I really enjoy food. One of the things I did not realize was coming to Maryland. This state is really big on seafood, in particular crab. I had never had crab before, but I had crab cakes once I got here, and I am a huge fan. I love crab cakes. I think they're
Okay.
delicious. Sorry to the folks who have seafood allergies, but this is a great spot for seafood. And just a lot of like, I mean, there are restaurants here that are, in a theme that's similar across cities, whether it be American or Italian or what have you, in terms of style of the cuisine. But the quality is just like really nice. I mean, I actually have down the block a restaurant called Water for Chocolate, which is just phenomenal. I mean, it's an amazing. It's a black-owned restaurant. It is delicious, and it's easy to go to for brunch. Just
Okay.
walk down a block, and here we are. So there's just a lot of really cool places to eat. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I'm surprised that you hadn't had crab before because you said that you went to your undergraduate in Florida, and I would have thought that you would have had crab of some type down there. But I mean, I guess it just depends on like where you are at and like your interest at that time, I guess. So
Yeah, I can be I'm a creature of habit, so
okay.
I can eat the same meal for months, well, maybe even years. That's fine by me. As long as it's good, I don't get tired of things.
Right. Okay, definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, can you kind of like going back to the biology and stuff and science because I just can't get enough of science. So, do you have another fun fact maybe about immunology or neurology or just cancer, anything like, something interesting?
Yeah. Oh, you got me another one that is interesting. There, you see, we talked about this before, right? In terms of like,
Yes.
wow, there's a lot of things I find interesting, but what am I going to put? One thing I'm going to pick.
Oh, just give us everything you got.
Yeah. I don't know. It's this idea of, there's also this idea that's picking up with good data that, the microbiota, so the bacteria in your gut. So we have a lot of bacteria. In fact, I think we're by cell count by cell count more bacteria than we are human, which is also fascinating.
Oh, wow.
Really can influence a lot of different disease processes that you may not have thought about. So the obvious ones might be diseases of the gut because the bacteria are right there. But some of them include psychiatric diseases as well, neurologic diseases. So there's this growing connection between what's in our gut and how it influences or affects us in diverse settings and with regards to different pathologies. So that's I don't do any research in this, but it's something I've been keeping an eye on. And also in terms of how we respond to therapies for cancer as well. So it's very interesting to me.
Wow.
And at the heart of it is the immune system.
It always goes back to the immune system, right?
I might be a little biased.
Well, that's okay. But I think that that's really interesting. Thank you for that. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today to be able to do this and, talk about your experience and just other things about your life in general. I think that this is going to be something that people are going to find very interesting. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Awesome. In the last part of this podcast interview, Debebe mentioned that the things that are important to you will often change as you grow. It is important to accept this and recognize these changes. There are many aspects to attacking cancer in the brain. Different cells can emerge that inhibit cells that target cancer. There are also soluble factors, such as proteins, that influence the quality of the immune cells that may cause them to promote tumor growth. These issues speak to potential for breakthrough. Debebe mentions that some tips are to work hard, pursue your passions, and seek out mentors that can help you. Lastly, Debebe mentioned that there's an idea that the microbiota, or gut bacteria, can influence us. It can also impact how we respond to our environments and therapies. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to like and subscribe for future videos.